Hello and welcome to this exciting episode of the Paytech Show. Now, we've been covering open banking for a while, but examples of solid use cases are still harder to track down than you might think. So we took a trip to the Nordics, the land of open banking, where even the most traditional banks are taking to innovation far better than anywhere else. Coming up, we sit down with Nets in Oslo, and they're amongst the top payment processors in Europe. With PSD2 being one of the main drivers behind digital innovation, we wanted to hear how they're making it even easier and more intuitive for their customers to handle digital payments and related services. Over in Bergen, Norway, I chat with Sparebanken Vest, a savings bank that happens to be the second oldest bank in the country. Now, they've just released their own digital offering on top of their typical service. Finally, back in Oslo, I met with Zeipt, who are bringing the world of payments and retail together by using open banking.
The banks in the Nordic region have focused very much on new technology and the customer journey for a long time, being very early with mobile banks and internet banking. So in that sense, they have a kind of head start, focusing on that one. If you look at PSD2, the primarily focus so far has been on account aggregation. So enabling people to see their accounts in different banks within their normal mobile banks. But we have a very good example in Norway of a bank called Sparebanken Vest, a regional bank in Norway, which are now launching the first fully mobile bank in Norway, national-wise, based on PSD2 and open banking. So they're actually taking the opportunities in PSD2 and open banking and creating this new bank. So for example, in addition to having your account aggregation, you will also adjust your interest rate according to how your financial situation develops over time. So you don't need to phone up your bank every time there is a change in the interest rate, for example.
When we started the journey of building the Olav, which is our new offering, one of the things that we saw that every bank is perfectly the same from the outside. We market the bank in the same way. We have people, we have family, we have product offering, and we try to see what do Netflix do and what do Google do and how do they pronounce their offerings. They're doing it from the outside to the inside. So when we build Olav, we don't try to offering a new bank, we're trying to offering a new experience. And we are trying to make it easy for you to actually to be a customer and to actually have our products. We should not have the way that you have to talk to the bank to get something done, that we should talk to you when we need something done. So we are turning the way of thinking around in a new aspect.
That's absolutely brilliant. And so you've gone from being this traditional bank effectively to almost leapfrogging a lot of the challenger banks by using this new innovation, using open banking to create a brand new offering in total.
Yeah, and we can do that because we are a bank. We have everything in place. We have the risk management, we have the compliance, we have the back office, we have the onboarding, we have everything in the current banks. So when we start building a new one, we don't have to think about everything. We can just think about what kind of product, what kind of customers, because everything else is there. A challenging bank has to think about all these things. So they can't build on top of it. They have to actually understand the whole picture. So that it makes it possible for us to move faster and actually look more to the customer and not that much inside.
We provide a lot of services. We obviously do a lot, our real-time 24/7 instant payment platform, which is key both in the Nordics and we have clients other places in Europe, in Italy and Slovenia and Hungary. So we do infrastructure that sort of ties the financial services community together. That's one of the things that we do. And secondly, we, with the advent of PSD2 and our PSD2 products, we also tie together the ability of providing services that you couldn't do yesterday, right? There are new services that are coming out that both gain large corporations and private citizens as well. And I think that the way that we look at this is you collaborate on infrastructure. You work on getting infrastructure right. So obviously we work together with banks, with banking associations and so forth on getting all of this plumbing right. But in addition to that, it's important for us to work together with the banks to understand how can they, in their customer journey, remove friction from the elements that they see as being customer facing. So when we know the plumbing, when we know how you can use PSD2, how you can set up ecosystems, how you can work together and sort of create networks where 1 + 1 = 5 or 6 or 7 or more. That's something which you do individually towards banks, but you also do that in getting banks to collaborate on services. And if you look at some of the stuff that we also do is around e-billing, which is a really important element in terms of creating space for small and medium businesses and large businesses to really transact in a fast way, to really ensure that they are able to provide their services with the least amount of friction when it comes to getting paid for their services and getting those out there. So I think we like to participate in the ecosystem, but we also like to be a catalyst for the great ideas. So we see a lot of different elements since we work on different parts of the infrastructure and services and applications that go there. So I think we're going to be able to both provide services, but also be in a good dialogue with larger, smaller, incumbent fintech banks, all of them, to understand how can you create the services that are going to be relevant not only today, but 3 or 4 or 5 years from now.
How do you look to partner with other private organizations, for instance, to keep providing that best-in-class service?
Yeah, we actually use a lot of local vendors. Nets is one of them, for instance, and Tier2 Every is another one. They offer us a lot of the plumbing or the tricky parts to get things to work together, so that we can build our customer-facing services on top of it. We actually have a large IT department with 150 people, but it's small compared to the big banks and compared to the techno vendors. So we are trying to use the best of our current partners and build just a small layer at the top, which is our offerings to the customer.
We've heard how you interact with banks and other private organizations as well. What is it like being part of this ecosystem? What do you think your customers are really going to benefit from that?
I think there will be less banking and more customer-centric services. I think that there's a lot of waves. Open banking is just a wave, and you have open APIs, open government, open X. Everything is some kind of give, and a bank like us the opportunity to see different kind of offerings, not just accounts and transactions and payment or know your customers and money laundering handling and that kind of stuff. But we can also try to involve with our customers' daily life, try to be a part of what they would do and what they need to do. So that I think we actually build less banking and more customer-facing features into our solutions.
Next, we wanted to see what open banking meant for the fintechs of the Nordics. So I heard from Zeipt, a company that is managing to cut down paper receipt usage by leveraging open banking.
I think that open banking is a main driving factor for that we will actually be able to pull this off. I think open banking is what gives us the timing, because we had some rules. We even though we didn't even know what fintech was the first 6 months of running this company, we had some kind of guidelines and the guidelines were no hardware. You can't change the behavior of a consumer or a person who works in a retailer. So you can't suddenly have a process that takes half a minute or a minute longer just because it's sent a receipt. And number 3, it has to be sent to a relevant place. It has to be put in context that's relevant. So those are kind of the 3 main pillars that are ignorance in the start. Of course, now has become a bit more substantiated in facts and understanding of the market. But those are the pillars that have always stand clear. And the last pillar, which is, of course, it has to be in a relevant place, is key. We don't believe that we could have ever pulled this off by having an interface, because you could have X amount of customers, but you'll never be able to digitalize receipts in the same scale. Digital payments are digitalized, and that's kind of our vision. So we believe that open banking is key, because it pushes players like our fantastic partner Nets, the banks, to look outside of their box. okay, what else can we do? Okay, we have 90% of customers, if you look at banks as a whole, use the digital financial service. Okay, what value can we create instead of just, oh, look, we're banks. We're in a protected environment where we make money off interest. So without open banking, I don't believe that you could digitalize receipts in the scale that we aim to digitalize receipts in collaboration with Nets and our other partners.
How does Nets actually help large organizations like banks or large retailers effectively adopt open banking?
Well, the way we see it, open banking is more than just ordinary standardized products. Open banking is much more like a vision. Like I said, you need to move from open banking being about banking to lifestyle. So partnering up with a company that has a clear vision and a clear strategy, I think that's very important for banks and companies that like to succeed in this space. And Nets is definitely there. To support that, we have a very strong open banking platform built on our instant clearing platform. So we have the capacity for all this. And then, of course, speaking to companies across industries. I mean, these days I speak to more companies outside the financial industry than within. So both larger companies, retail companies, but also industrial companies and fintechs, and kind of connecting the dots and see where are the opportunities and who can actually help each other out there in this space. One example is last year when I spoke to a number of banks in Norway who requested digital receipts and said that we would like to have that to support our strategy of helping people get insight and control over their financial situation. So what we have done is to create to build one API that connects to all the digital receipt providers in Norway, such as Zeipt. And then banks like Sparebanken Vest, which is the first bank we have partnering with in this area, can get access to receipt through that API. So they don't have to connect all the providers by themselves. PC2 was a great beginning. But then again, it was just the beginning. I mean, it didn't cover savings accounts, investments, loan, and so forth. So I expect that to be covered in a PSD3. But then again, I think open banking is in itself a bit narrow. I mean, we should look beyond the financial industry, look to other industries as well, giving you as a person control of your data regardless of industry. A bit like they've done in Australia, where they have the Consumer Data Right Act, looking at several different industries and how people can get control of the information so that you can create services based on that. And I think that's where the real opportunities in the future will be.
That's all we've got time for this episode of the Paytech Show. But remember, you can watch the rest of the series and much more over at www.fintech.finance. See you next time.